she does have some literature back there on the back table. So I'm going to hand it over to her. Because you start graveyards tonight too, right? Tomorrow night. Okay, here you go.
Thank you. After Rick asked me to talk to you guys, I labored over what I was going to say for weeks. And I finally realized I'm not a politician, just another working mom, just your average American. I'm not good at public speaking, I'll let you know right now. All I can do is try to speak from my heart. I decided to run for office because as a libertarian, I strongly value my personal freedoms while believing that personal responsibility is equally important. The definition of libertarian is a person who upholds the principles of individual liberty, especially of thought and action. And I believe it fits me. Each year, our government takes more and more of our freedoms away from us. We need to stand up as a society and make a change. The only way to do this is to believe that we as people can make it happen. I am one of the people who believe that by getting out there, taking a stand, making our voices heard, that we can change the course of our nation. I know a lot of you here in this room believe that too. We, the Libertarians, as a party, oppose government intervention in our personal, family, and business decisions. As long as we aren't hurting others with our decisions, we should be allowed to make them for ourselves. The Libertarian Party believes that government has gotten too big. Our Constitution is very clear on the scope of our government. However, our government continues to overstep its bounds. In order to maintain its control over us, the people, our government enlarges each year. This growth occurs both in amounts of laws it imposes on its people and the agencies that must be enacted to make sure we all follow these laws. A side effect of this roller coaster ride is the cost to the American people. We pay for these costs, you and I. Libertarians also advocate economic freedom. We are generally in favor of lowering taxes, getting rid of bureaucratic regulation of business, and charitable welfare, not government welfare. The third tenet would be tolerance. As libertarians, we adopt a live and let live mentality and a balanced checkbook. Personally, I struggle with this balanced checkbook, but I hold myself accountable, as our government should also be made to be accountable for its actions. Libertarians don't ascribe to being either conservative or liberal. We like to say that we are fiscally conservative while being socially liberal. We borrow from both parties, but omit broken promises. People from all parties and walks of life have joined the movement of the Libertarian Party. In terms of numbers of candidates, registered voters, and elected officials, the Libertarian Party is the third largest political party in the U.S. I am here to say there is an option to the status quo. We can stand up for what we believe and elect people who actually represent us, the average American. We need to lose the mentality of the lesser of two evils when we vote. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are a viable option anymore. No matter which party is in control, the politicians holding office will be pandering to re-election bids and corporate lobbyists in order to remain in office. We need to rid our government of the career politicians. I believe that if enough of us say we won't take it anymore, we can begin to bring our America back to what it was meant to be. This will not happen overnight, but the first step is to get out there, and for each and every one of us to get out and vote our conscience. That's it.
Okay, so I guess you're open for questions?
Yes.
So what would you do if you think the government's too big as a state legislator to stop that? How could you?
I just really think we need to get the word out there and get people elected to all offices that are on our side and want to end it, so that we can make a change everywhere. Our federal government does things that it was never intended to do. Our state governments are supposed to have way more control than they have right now, and things are not, I just believe it's completely unconstitutional the way our government is run, and I would do whatever I could. I'm not sure exactly what that is because this was a spur of the moment thing for me, and I wanted to make a difference, so I stepped up.
Talk to me a little bit about your ideas about the taser amendment.
I don't even know what that is.
Taser's,
I've heard of it, but I can't.
it's the law that basically states that any tax increase that has to go to the people,
Yes.
but it's also on a sliding scale that its intent is to actually shrink government.
I don't know how that shrinks government. I mean, I think any laws we enact in I think our tax system needs a complete overhaul anyway. The one we have is a mess. We put forth a few ideas as a party on how to fix our tax system, and one of them is a flat tax. Another one is individual states having more, they each pay the federal government a certain amount, but it's the states that have control. Yes. We don't pay to the federal government. The federal government has nothing even to do with taxes. And there was a third option, and they're all really interesting options. I don't know that I like the idea of making more rules to our tax system to try to fix the failing tax system. I think it just needs to be completely changed. I don't know. I would have to really look at it and see what it said, because I haven't followed up on a lot of stuff. I intend to get very educated very quickly. I've only been running like
Tabor's
a month.
a good place for you.
Yes. I've only been running a month, and
I guess my question would be is that right now we have an establishment of politicians.
yes.
We have an establishment of discontent as people. You're stepping up because you feel you can make a difference. But you have to fight that battle first. You have to fight the battle of, like you say, not only Democratic but Republican bureaucracy. Are you willing to stand that fight? It's easy to say it, but how do you think you will fight that fight?
I'll be very vocal. I don't intend to bow to anybody. I don't intend to have somebody that I owe for anything that I do. What I do will be because I truly believe in it. We just need so many changes. It's overwhelming. It is completely overwhelming. We need term limits because we should not have any career politicians. It should not even be a possibility. Power corrupts, people are in there too long, and whether they start out with good intentions, their intentions change.
This is kind of hard. I consider myself a libertarian, but I'm registered as a Republican. But I'm leaning more towards the libertarian in that I do think our government is way too big. There are way too many rules. The government oversteps its reach in trying to fulfill everybody's needs when that's not a government's responsibility. My question to you as a libertarian, I can't go as far as free marijuana and prostitution, legal prostitution. I can't go that far as not wanting to secure our borders.
They didn't, what I read on the borders specifically, we just want to make it easier for people to work legally so that they are required to meet all of the requirements we are, pay taxes, do those things. We had a period of time when the borders worked. We had this program and people came into work legally and things worked really well then for a time. We had way fewer people being arrested and they work and they would pay taxes into our society like the rest of us did. They're responsible for their actions. A lot of people come here illegally, they get arrested, they're put in jail, but then they're shipped back to Mexico,
And then they come back.
and then they come back. Whereas this way, there's just more accountability. I don't know that I want to make everybody citizens, but these were work visas they came on. It was a completely different system. The one we have now doesn't work. We keep hiring more border patrol. It costs more. More people come over. It costs more. They're not paying taxes. They take advantage of government programs, which is one of the reasons they come here, is for the government programs, and we don't believe in those government programs in the first place. If you reduce some of the incentive to come here and live free, there is not as much reason. In our recent downturn of the economy, we had a lot fewer people coming over because even they couldn't find jobs. The part with legalizing things, and it's been shown that when you legalize these drugs, we have prison overcrowding. We have violent offenders in our prisons who get out in a fourth of the time they should, because our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent drug crimes that really don't belong there. And so we let out the violent criminals to lock up the non-violent criminals for their 1/4 time, for their misdeeds. It's been, God, I'm not good at public speaking.
Just relax, I just want to know what you think.
Yeah, our system is bad. If we end prohibition, when we ended prohibition back in the 30s, the 20s, when we ended prohibition, things got better. I mean, prohibition made normal, everyday citizens criminals. And I don't think that Joe Bob what he does next door is really any of my business. I don't have to agree with what he does, because truthfully I don't. But I believe that we should all be allowed to make our own decisions. If we're not harming, if this guy over here isn't hurting me, then who am I to tell him what he can and can't do?
But it does hurt us. It hurts us as a community, and it hurts us as personally. It hurts me because I'm scared to death to have my kids out because somebody's high on pot. You could say the same thing about alcohol. You know, we do the best we can, but even more, even younger people can get high on. I'm scared to death to have my kids driving around with my grandbabies because you don't know who's high anymore.
I am much more worried about the person driving drunk than the person driving stoned, and I'm sorry.
It's the same thing.
And it's legal for them to drive.
No, it's not.
No, but I mean, it's legal for them to go out and get drunk, and they make their mistakes, and then they get held accountable. If pot is legal, it still is illegal to drive on it. It still is illegal to put yourself in a situation where you're going to harm another person. It's still illegal to steal from someone to get the money to buy that drug. Those are still crimes. It's just not what you do in the privacy of your own home.
Well, just a comment, Sasha. I mean, you said it yourself. You know, with liberty, you've got to have that responsibility. In other words, if someone is driving while impaired, whether it's alcohol, whatever, and they do something wrong, they do something harmful, prosecute the heck out of it. Let's start punishing the people who are doing wrong and the people who maybe need marijuana for pain control, for depression. I mean, we've learned a lot about pot in the last 30 years. You know, it's a medicinal herb with potential for abuse. But let's look at the people who use it wisely, who use it responsibly, and let them do that. And the people that don't, prosecute.
Yes, and we also believe that criminals should be forced to pay restitution to their victims also. In our court system now, we pay to our court system just to run it. That money belongs to the victims. Restitution for their pain and suffering, for whatever. There needs to be more of a punishment that makes you actually not want to do these things. If I'm going to kill somebody and go to jail for 10 years, is that really a huge deterrent? Because you're supposed to go for life. You're not supposed to go to jail and say, oh, well, I get to go home and, a couple of years, it'll be fine. And we don't have the room for these people in our jails. And they don't make decisions based on what your crime was. Across the board, everybody gets cut. to a quarter of the time, basically.
So are you saying the same philosophy would be on the abortion issue? Would you take that same philosophy across the board to that?
The abortion issue is a tough one, and I do believe in a person's choice, but I personally am pro-life. It's very hard. Personally, my choice would be not to do it. But I don't think I should have that say for somebody. I worry that if we take that right away from women, there will be back alley things done. People will be getting hurt. I see just scary things happening. It's not my place to tell this person over here what they should do.
Sasha, sorry, I gotta interject here. Our founding fathers said without religion and morality, this government that we have would never work. And I think, I'm sorry, Sasha, but saying that, I always hear that, what's the woman's right? What's the baby's rights?
And
Is that baby not
I do
have the right
understand
to
those points. I've
That's
had
a
4
moral-
children.
That's a moral issue that this country, I'm afraid if we don't get back to moral issues and stand on them also,
Yes.
murder is murder. And I know there may be people here that disagree with me, but when I read the scriptures, it said God knows the baby, knows the child from the womb. What happens to that baby's rights? I'm sorry, when it becomes a moral issue, I fire it.
It can get really tricky. I mean, it's a difficult one because personally, I've had all my babies, and I would never,
They have
ever
rights.
have
They're
chosen
human.
to not have them.
They have
And my
rights.
mother told me, you know. I've heard from so many people who did have abortions, and they told me they felt like murderers. I have never heard someone say they were happy with their decision. I have always thought that perhaps a little more education and
But when it comes to a choice of the mother and child, I agree. One of them is going to die, and I'm not going to butt in. The mother has to decide. But if we're just doing that out of convenience to get rid of a child because you did something wrong, too bad. Two wrong things don't make it right. So I really wish you would.
I do think about it a lot because of, my personal feelings. I get so afraid of what will happen if we make these things. I see just, the back alley abortions and people dying in back alleys and things that were happening back in the 40s. These things did happen. And, I've been pregnant enough that I do know that when I find out I'm pregnant, it's a baby. For me, personally. I liked her questions better. They were much easier than mine.
I told you we were going to really do that.
Is everybody done? Any more? Good.